Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
We'll be
Every
He
time
didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.
Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I am Pawel the Cat, and my co-host
Evan Rev Reynolds coming back at you guys. You can follow us at hockey_2, and you can follow me over at Rev and Ev. Hey, glad to be back for another week. I almost didn't make it for the show in time. My truck went down, and then I have a Nissan. I don't think the Nissan's a part of that song. The truck got stuck. They need to add Nissan to that because my ignition got stuck, man. My ignition got stuck.
I think you're just making up excuses for me having to manage the show by my own. But enough about us. Evan, we got a great guest headliner, right?
Hey.
Go ahead, Evan.
No, so you cut me right off. Hey, we want to welcome Keegan and Bartran. Guys, so he's done some work with play-by-play. He's a media personality. He's done with AJHL, some other work around. We're going to ask him all the questions specifically. So if you love hearing a good voice, we have no idea. We haven't talked enough yet tonight. We know that he's covering his head with Pawel. So clearly, though, he's got a lot going on inside of that head, and he's going to share it with us here tonight. So we'll give you a little more updates as we go on. Man, Keegan, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it. Sorry to hear about the car troubles there, Rev.
He doesn't need your sympathy. He's fine. He just needs a better vehicle. We're looking for sponsors, or maybe he is, for a better vehicle, I think, for the show. But welcome. We appreciate you being on the show. We have a lot to get into, but first and foremost, we always ask every new guest that comes on the show, where did your love of the game first emerge? Was there a moment in your life that you first fell in love or kind of watched the game of hockey and you're like, I want to be a part of this somehow?
I don't know if you can really pinpoint one exact moment where I just fell in love with the game. I think I've always kind of just loved it, right? It's been a part of my life since I can even remember. And I've been on skates since around 3 or 4 and played a lot. And obviously just being in a household that was really sports oriented. Hockey was the primary one. Every night was seemingly watching hockey on TV or just any sort of, we had tickets to Western Hockey League games, season tickets to the Medicine Tigers. So just any chance you could be around the rink and be around the game of hockey. It was never something that was just like, oh, one day I woke up and I was like, wow, I love the game. It's just been always something that I've loved, and it's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. So not exactly one moment, but I've loved hockey every single day, and I don't think I'll ever not love it.
Well, we'll let Evan ask the next question here, but we did do a little digging because you are on Elite Prospects, and I think that as any Canadian kid, it's a claim to fame. So you want to talk a little bit about this and why you're cross-checking and whether or not you even got a penalty for this little maneuver?
Well, that's some digging. That's junior B days. I want to say that was my last year. Actually, I was in school, my first year in school in Calgary, and I was commuting back and forth to Medicine to play. And that's actually just off a face-off, just a battle on a face-off. And I think I won it to the side and he turned his body, and I don't know why he turned into me. So I kind of gave him one, no penalty on the play as far as I can remember. But yeah, that's a funny photo that you guys have dug up there.
That's a veteran move right there. If you didn't get a penalty off a face-off and you were able to cross-check him a bit, so props to you.
Yeah, I'm a little cheeky that way.
I think you're good if there's no suspension coming. If you were getting George Peros to be checking this video, if he saw it, he would look and say, "This is a perfect play. There's no interference. There's." You're blocking your man out. That's all you're doing. You're blocking the man. It is always funny how a pitcher, they can say it says 1,000 words, but it can say 1,000 lies too, can't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's funny. You're not the first person to ask me if that was a cross-checking penalty. So, no, got away with that one.
All right. Well, let's update everybody a little bit here tonight. So just so you guys know, one of so on X, not Twitter. My buddy likes to call it Twitter still. I don't tweet any longer. I post. It's X. You got to get used to it, buddy. Get used to it. It's Twitter on steroids because Elon's got it now. Anyway, I'm just joking. But one of the things so we've connected on X a little bit here and been following some of your stuff, different work you do, working around broadcasting. I want to get into the BCH and AJHL stuff, but before we do that, maybe give us a little bit of your rich history, just in the work and play-by-play and media personality stuff that you got yourself into. And I believe you're freelancing right now.
I'm freelancing right now. That's correct. It started, way back when I was just younger and I always wanted to just call playing mini sticks, or I was always the guy as the voice there. But once I got to school, it was a lot of fun. My first year there, Mount Royal had just transitioned to a degree program. So we were the first degree. There were still diploma students finishing, and those second year guys were the voices of the teams and things like that around Mount Royal athletics. So unfortunately, my first year, I wasn't able to get right into it. But my first day at school, I met a guy by the name of Matt Barrett, and he's now the voice of the Swift Current Broncos. First class I was ever in, first hour.
Wow.
School. And he kind of let me in on the lowdown of what he was doing as the voice of the hockey. And I kind of started asking him if I could shadow. And that's what I wanted to do when I went into year two. And I knew going into year two that the whole 4 years program was going to allow me to be a voice for 3 seasons and not just one. So I did everything I could to get that job. And I got hired as the girls play-by-play for the women's hockey team. The other guy that got hired was the men's. And 2 weeks in, he decided to quit. So selfishly, I was pretty happy about that because I got to take both teams and kind of run with it for 3 years after that. And Mount Royal did awesome. I got to see the programs grow to what they are today. The women won a national championship last year.
Wow.
It was, they've only been in youth sports. This is year 10. So it's crazy to see how far they've come. The guys team is now ranked second in Canada. It's just crazy. And that was just some good times in my life every day at the rink, on those weekends, covering those teams. And unfortunately, COVID hit and I was going into my last semester and I had to step away. So I knew Mount Royal and Canada West and U Sports wasn't going to play that year. And I ended up coming back to Medicine Hat and ultimately started coaching for 3 seasons. And that kind of transitioned last year a little bit where I wanted to get back into the freelance game, and AJHL and all that stuff came about it too. So, I've done AJ a little bit, not as much this year as last, more Western Hockey League color this year. And then of course, I do all the CSSHL games down here for the South Alberta Hockey Academy with their U8 prep, female prep, and U17 prep teams.
So we've had Alex Tomics, who did play-by-play for the Hartford Wolfpack on the show before, and like yourself, it takes a lot of preparation and dedication. But what are some of the things that you do in order to prepare for every game, whether it's the women's game, in terms of being able to get out there and do your job effectively? And how do you prepare and maybe teach people coming into the industry? Because maybe now there's a young student somewhere out there at a broadcasting school that's interested in maybe shadowing you or learning from you. What does that look like? What do you suggest they kind of pick up on and focus on?
Well, the first thing I wouldn't say do it often. I did it through a lot of my classes was I nerded out and studied the two teams like crazy instead of maybe paying attention more often than not. But I mean, I went full out at Mount Royal to try and make those programs a little more well known. At the time, they were only 6-7 years in to being youth sports, so not getting massive recruits in terms of the top ones. They did collect a few here and there, but I wanted it to be more seen like, wow, we can go to Mount Royal and look at the coverage they get. It gives us an opportunity to go pro with more coverage. And, we had a podcast there that we talked about Mount Royal primarily, but, we had the league get talked about a little bit more. And I just kind of dove into it head first with, I wanted to give everything that I could to that program and to both programs. And the girls' game was so fun to be a part of too, because it's such a different game and you get to learn so much. And I felt that I'm really good at the time. Obviously, I'm a little older when I went to school, so all those players there, around the same age. I actually played against a few of them growing up, or you just see where they are now, and a lot of them come from major junior, right? So it was an immediate, easy transition, especially with the guys knowing a lot of them, being able to go into that room and be welcomed immediately because they know what you're trying to do. And they ultimately want to tell their story too, right? Like everyone thinks that if you're a young broadcaster, the easiest thing at school is don't be so nervous about going to talk to a player or a coach, because ultimately all they want is they want to promote themselves too. And they want to promote their program and get people to come there in the long run. And my first year, I kind of dipped my feet in the water a little bit with that. And by the second year, I was like, you know what? I think these guys like it. Like they want me to come talk. The girls loved it too. Like they wanted to come on and do interviews. And as nervous as they got, they loved it in the end. And I think just preparing that way and getting to know them personally away from being on camera and on air, then that makes them more comfortable as well.
So I was just thinking, by the way, you were just saying, so the one of the guys that you got mentored by, he's now with the Swift Current Broncos. He must have taken over when Sean Mullen left for the Broncos then.
No. So Matt went to Melfort after, I think he didn't even finish. He wasn't even done like graduate yet. And he left and he finished while he was in Melfort. In the last 6 years or so, he was there. And this year, Swift Current had moved on from a recent guy, and Matt then took over. And I know Sean was there. I know him a little bit from my time with a different company. So it's, I know Sean was there for a while, but I think there was a guy or maybe two before Matt.
Okay. Yeah, no, we've had Sean's a friend of the show. We've had him on a couple times. He's done a last minute fill in with 30 minutes because I thought my partner here wouldn't join us from Iceland. And he joined us last minute at 3 a.m.
It was very 3 or 4 a.m.
Yeah,
and hostel that I was staying with my wife and little one. So, and it was this beautiful kind of cabin that we stayed in, and the Wi-Fi was spotty. But I was like, man, oh man, I don't know if I can make it. And I only had a few cold brews at that morning, but yeah.
No one wants to hear about the full story, Pawel. I was just giving you.
I'm not as important as Keegan.
But it's Iceland, right? And we're talking about ice hockey. So no, so actually, and this is a part I didn't know. So before we get to, maybe we'll wrap up our segment with you here today around the BCA, JHL, Hockey Canada stuff. Since we got around, I didn't know about the coaching piece here. So you've been coaching some, what age have you been doing some coaching last few years?
Well, it differed. My first 2 years, I was a head coach with the U16 AAA program here in Medicine. And then last year we stepped away. Well, our whole staff kind of stepped away together, but I went back into the freelance broadcast stuff and got a call about the U18 AA program. And it was, I'm not a guy who, especially as a head coach, can really say, I can be there 3/4 of the time. Like I want to be there for everything. And my dad ended up getting the team, and he knew my situation, and he's coached here for years. So, I mean, it was like pulling him out of retirement to get him onto that bench. And it was all kids that I had coached 2 years prior. So it was kind of nice. I knew the families were good. The kids were good. And they were just in a rough rut with the staff or whoever was there at the time. So I took over as an assistant with that. And things went really well. Ended up winning the South Division last year, lost in double overtime in the league final. So it was a fun year. And I mean, if it's the last year coaching, I can say I went out coaching 1 year with my dad who did it for a while, and we actually did well.
So being U16, because not everyone's familiar. For example, we're hoping to get Howie Draper back on University of Alberta Pandas. We had him on a couple of seasons ago, and of course we asked him questions around development, which we're going to be moving further ahead now because we've been a pro advocate for women's hockey, obviously. But one of the things that we're always interested in, so in coaching, what are the things in U16 then when you're working with the kids, like? How do you keep them focused, and what are the most important elements out there? Because you got kids at variances of skills, obviously. Like, how did you approach it? I'd be curious.
It's a weird league, and it's a weird year. That league's no longer intact in Alberta. It's now U17, so it's first and second years. But
okay,
we had it as just first years. So every year is a reset for every team because you only had 15-year-olds come to your team that didn't make the U18 level. And I mean, what a weird age, right? 15 years old. You got kind of a bunch of different things going on. You're in high school now. Everything's kind of balled up towards you. It's at that level, we practice 3 times a week. Sometimes you're going to Edmonton for games. You're going to Red Deer. You're going farther. So it's an interesting league to try and keep them motivated at times. But the most important thing for us was to develop them into terms of this is now an elite level where it's not just going to be passing and shooting and just a back check. It's positioning, and you got face-off plays, you got neutral zone plays, you got plays in every part of the ice, right? Really. So you have to be ready every single day. And I mean, we were trying to prepare them at that level. It's not even necessarily about winning. At the time, I probably would tell you different because I'm a competitive freak. But you look back at it and you go, I love the fact that I see a ton of those kids playing U18 prep or AAA hockey now. Some make the jump, but the kids you coach against, you get to see a ton of them now. Some are in the Western Hockey League, so a lot are in Junior A. So you just kind of develop kids to get to that next level, and that next level isn't Junior A or the Western Hockey League. It's making the U18 team, right? So you want to get them up to with speed with that, and just kind of give them the little details that will help them get there.
Wow.
So given the popularity and the increased level of kids going into hockey, of the value of it, people love it. It's a cultural staple. Could you talk a little bit about maybe the fan bases and the fans in the communities and how they come around in terms of supporting the team and the level of involvement maybe communities have or local agencies in that area for you? Because we know how big junior hockey is at almost every level. Just maybe your experience with those kind of organizations and those communities.
Well, Major Junior's taken a big step this last couple of seasons. I thought while I was in school, it kind of looked like only a few markets were staying red hot and selling out every game. But now I'm even seeing teams like I give the Kamloops Blazers a little bit of credit because last year they went all in to host the Memorial Cup, and this year they knew they were going to be a low balanced team and not have a very competitive team. And they're still almost selling out every game. So that's amazing to see because Major Junior Hockey is so fun to watch. It's been a part of my life forever. And then in the Junior A markets, I'm sure I'll touch on it a little more when we get to this whole debacle with the AJ and BCHL. But, you're seeing now some smaller markets get a little bit more of a jump and staying involved in those top markets are always involved. I mean, just my time with Okotoks last year, which is brief. I think I did, 12 to 15 home games for them last year, some on the road for Fort McMurray. You get to experience different buildings and the atmospheres that are there. And a lot of fans come out to a lot of different games. Okotoks had some great crowds there in games that I was at, and they do a good job with promoting, with, having school days where they give a bunch of tickets to a bunch of different classes that come out and support during the day. And I mean, it's so many different aspects, but it's awesome to see that communities are still diving back into junior hockey because as a young player, that's the best part is getting to play in front of that many people, right? And I think that energizes those players too.
100%. And I think it just brings out that passion, and you see it that like not only are the families involved in supporting them, but that community is so involved and loves the game that regardless of the level of competition, even the women's, I'm sure you've probably experienced the same thing, which is now growing more than ever. That's really cool. Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah. So, okay. Just so everyone who's listening, we got Keegan Bartram on here. He does play-by-play. He's freelancer right now, guys. If anyone's out there, you're looking for a team. By the way, so Andrew Dibble, our partner over at the Kalkaska Battlers over in the Michigan Independence Hockey League. You need a guy. I don't know. Maybe he can do it long distance for you. Call him up there, Andrew. You guys got some semi-pro games going on. Keegan is your man. Maybe. We'll see if you guys can interest him. You got to interest them. So anyway, make sure you guys go check out the Kalkaska Battlers on their YouTube. They got a couple games left to wrap up their season before they're done, one of our partners. I just want to update everybody. So those last week, we kind of highlighted more information coming out. 2 weeks ago, we had Tom Gazzola on, and he talked about him and John Belzy, how they were having conversations already around why more players are not going from, say, groups like the AJHL into the BCHL. The BCHL had left. They're not going under Hockey Canada. They didn't worry about sanctions. They are also the league that provides the most NCAA recruits. So they follow the system pretty much, if you're not familiar, with groups like the USHL and a couple other ones. So they have more freedom to recruit. They're not limited by territory, etc. There's way more to a lot of this. We'll touch in on some of this, obviously, Keegan. Just kind of updating all of you guys. So go back to the last couple of weeks, get more info if you're kind of confused to some of our conversation. All right. So we have now this week, it comes out that not only did BCHL announce the 5 teams, but then the Saints come out and the ownership, and they're saying, hey, we're still committed to this league throughout the rest of the season. We haven't made any other commitments, basically, is what they start saying. Now it's, since that release, the AJHL now wants the BCHL to come out and say, okay, what's going on? Because they suspended all of them. Now, I could be wrong. I'm looking out of the information that I was just pulling up today because I've been quite busy. It's looking like the 11 other teams now, it's saying the remaining 11 AJHL, this has come out in the Calgary Herald, have canceled for the rest of this year's schedule. This is shocking to me. I didn't even know about this right now. So this is a big mess. And now we're in a situation where the AJL looks bad. I've talked to a couple player agents, and some of them that work with young guys they're concerned about sending other kids to the AJHL in the fact that because they just canceled the season, it's like they were mad and angry. I know on the X, I'm going to let you get a whole bunch in here, Keegan. On X, Sean Mullen and I have had this conversation. He's like, well, listen, do you want to let a championship from your AJHL team that wins it go to the BCHL? Like, I mean, I get that. So can you give us your thoughts, your impression, where you're at with this whole thing? Obviously, you've done a little bit of work with Major Junior and Junior A. Yeah, go ahead.
So first, I don't know if that is true that the other 11 teams are done for the season, because I think there's games on as we speak. And what I think could be happening in that article is maybe the other 11 teams, those games against them are canceled, obviously, which is what the AJHL has decided.
Originally, yeah.
All 5 of those defecting teams came out with the same statement. The thing that was contradicting about it was the Brooks ownership group saying that, well, it wasn't supposed to come out till May. So now that kind of puts a little bit of a taste in the AJ's mouth, saying, so is it true? Is it not true? And I just want to preface on anything here that although I have done stuff for Okotoks and around the league, that I'm not an inside man for any information from those teams. This is all speculation on my part. Like,
100%. 100%.
I think that I see both sides. I think the AJHL 5 teams that are leaving or wanting to leave are there's just pros and cons for them. Is it maybe a competitive nature that they're looking for? Because at the beginning of the year, you would have told me or asked me which one of these 5 teams is, or which one of these teams is going to win. And I probably would have said one of those 5. I probably would have narrowed it down to briefly 2, perhaps even 1. And now you look at it and you go, I don't know who in the world would win if it finished. I mean, I think that's huge for the AJHL, but in those 5 teams leaving, there's Hockey Canada things that they don't like. And when you look at whatever it may be, whether that's the fact that they're wearing bubbles and cages or the recruitment rules or whatever it may be, those teams are wanting to leave for whatever reason. And I don't agree with people that come out and say, well, then they shouldn't have been so sneaky about it, because I really don't think they were trying to hide anything. I've heard about this for 7 years, and When I went to school, I went, there's no way what these teams are leaving. Never came to fruition. And now that it has, it's like Blackfalds comes in. Doug Quinn's done a great job building that program right from the ground up after purchasing the Calgary Mustangs. Played against Doug Quinn's midget teams. He's a great coach, great hockey mind. He knows how to build a program. And they have the funds financially to do all this moving. And I just think that maybe it's looking at the AJHL and going, well, you changed the schedule on us. Now everyone's paying more money to travel more. You got to go play all these teams twice up north and things like that. And whatever it may be, nobody knows the for sure reason of why these teams are leaving, except for the 5 teams that have so-called signed whatever. And even if they haven't signed it, it's been randomly now leaked that they want to leave. And I think that that's the suspicious part is if the AJHL didn't suspend these 5 teams from playing in the league right now, you're basically allowing somebody to win your league this year. Let's be honest. One of those 5 was probably going to win and then giving them the opportunity to leave. And I think the best way for them to do this is to prove that it's not true. And then to prove that those teams are going to be around come September, or right now, allow the 11 existing teams, which in my opinion, 11 or 12 is perfectly fine for an Alberta-based junior hockey league. Yeah. And it builds more for those 11 existing teams right now. Profit-wise, those teams get to go deeper into playoff runs now. Fan base-wise, they get to build a little bit more of a following because now they have an opportunity to win, in which they really didn't this year or even previous years.
That's a good point.
It's a lot of opportunity now for these existing markets. Like look at Whitecourt. They're probably the favorite if those 5 teams aren't there. That's huge for that market. The Calgary Canucks never really been relevant in a city with a Western Hockey League team, an NHL team, and an NLL team, a CFL. Like they're the bottom feeder there, and now they're competitive and in a running to potentially win the league. So like that could build some and generate following there and build it better for Calgary. And if you want to add existing junior B teams, I mean, you can. There's probably a couple programs that could make that jump. I think Wainwright's been fantastic the last couple of years running junior B. You look at, might be a little controversial with Okotoks, but the Okotoks Bisons are always good in that Heritage Junior Hockey League. So there's different ways to go about it. But I just really think that it's hard to believe that it's not true when something as random as this is comes from the league itself that they're going to. Like, I just don't think that would just come out from that league for no reason. If they're stirring the pot that much, then I think that's a little bit of a critique on the BCHL. But to me, it's good for whatever. Both teams all those 5 teams can go there, compete, do whatever, let them go. AJHL, people are worried that they're going to poach players. Players are poached anyway. So if players are going to go, I mean, it's the league itself is going to have more parity in it now, and it's still going to stay competitive regardless of the 5 teams leaving.
Well, and my understanding, because that was a very thorough analysis, is that there's also an opportunity within the BCHL to bring players over from overseas, predominantly Europe, and make it a bit more competitive, in which now you're creating essentially a newer program to create players for the future, whether they are going to play in the NHL or any other high-level hockey, right? Maybe go back to Europe and play for Sweden or Finland or maybe in the KHL. So there's definitely pros more so for the players. I think there's a lot to untangle here, and I'm sure that, neither of us are lawyers here, so we're not going to be getting into the weeds of what actually is. But we're going to be watching this closely because there's definitely something here. And as you alluded to it, it wasn't like a surprise if people were in the know. It was kind of going to happen sooner or later. Is kind of
and that's the thing too. Is I look at people that are blaming the AJHL for the 20-year-olds, the unfortunate 20-year-olds that are losing games right now because of it. But the AJHL, they had to do what they had to do. And the silliest analogy that I came up with was, if you make dinner for someone every single night, you go out, get the supplies, you work hard to make that dinner and feed them. And then you get a text randomly one day and it says, hey, enjoy it, because in a month they're going to be coming to my house for dinner. Are you going to still make them dinner for the next month, or are you going to try and get to the bottom of it before working that hard and feeding them? So I really wonder if that's what the AJHL is doing. They're doing the right thing. And if people aren't okay with it, I don't think you should be blaming the league that is trying to save itself a little bit and save it's behind, because I think you got to think of the organizations that let this come out.
I think the playing the devil's advocate here, because I know this is where Sean Mullen and I have been back and forth, is the devil's advocate is you need to promote your league. You're going to be actually losing. Let's just say these 5 teams are gone. It is as rumored. Everything's going to happen. There could be even more. Who knows what happens from this? Not just the Alberta. There could be Saskatchewan. It could be Manitoba. I mean, I doubt it. There's talk also in the States. However, here's the issue. If you're a player, because you're not the one that's done anything, it's ownership trying to go for the money, trying to go for the notoriety, trying to get the sponsors. If you're a player and you're now in a position where you're trying to get yourself ready for NCAA, or you're trying to get looked at, depending on your age, you now miss out on being able to showcase yourself. And I get it, it's your team's fault. But because the AJL has looked at that, this is what I'm being told. And I've talked to 2 players' agents. So one has 2 people and one has 1 person that's actually on one of those teams. And what I'm getting is they're saying, our concern is the players are saying, why are we being penalized? This has nothing to do with us. But they don't want to jump ship because next year they have a good opportunity, but they're still going to miss some development this year. So I guess that's the balance here, because just because ownership's doing something. So it almost looks like, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going home. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, if you are those players, it's tough right now because the AJHL let those 5 teams continue to play each other. With the scheduling, though, Spruce Grove had no more games against those teams, which is really difficult. But what I wondered was maybe those 5 teams were just going to figure it out and play it out anyway against each other, even if it's exhibition, whatever, continue to play. But then you look at, I think it was tonight, Brooks and Sherwood Park had a game canceled. So I start to wonder, maybe are they pushing back now, saying, well, if you're not going to let us play anyone else, then what are we doing here? And maybe it's just going to come all the way out that it is true. Maybe it's not. Again, it's all speculation. And it's pretty crazy because people want to tell me that, well, they're bored. They're bored of competing in this league and winning it. Believe me, junior A players that age, coaching staffs, GMs, nobody gets tired of winning. They don't care if they win it 30 times in a row.
That's a good point.
So I think that they're not seeking better competition necessarily. They're just, for whatever their reasons may be, they're looking at an opportunity that, hey, all 5 of us are going to be in a division, play each other. Cranbrook joins it. Travel might be a little more hectic. It is what it is. But this is an opportunity to, yes, bring 2 European-style players over here, bring American players to our organizations. That builds up maybe some more for our fan bases to see some up-and-coming players. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it. And I definitely see both sides. I don't agree with people that are saying that the AJHL is about to fold because of this.
Right. No, absolutely not.
This league can run on 11, 12 teams. And like I said earlier, those 11, 12 markets can really grow from this too.
Yeah.
And I think what people need to realize is sometimes we don't see the behind the scenes of the business model of what each of these teams has and what is needed. And maybe a change of scenery is what it needs in order to be a bit more financially competitive, or it's more incentivized to do so because it's a benefit to them. So we're definitely going to be keeping our eye on this story because it's definitely developing and it's not going to be resolved anytime soon. Now, to switch gears a little bit, we do like to talk about the NHL. I love to talk about the NHL. So I don't know, Keegan, if you have a team that you're a fan of or you kind of follow or you're just kind of in the know, but we did have a trade today. So I wanted to get your first initial thoughts on this to take place. So it seems like Elias Lindholm is heading over to the Vancouver Canucks, and the Calgary get Kuzmenko, who hasn't been really happy. He has been benched a few times under Tocchet, along with Hunter Bruzevich, Yuri Yurmo, 24 first-round pick, and a conditional 24 fourth-round pick. Your initial thoughts on the trade, if you've even seen it at all?
No, I saw it just before we came on. Wow, what a haul for Elias Lindholm. I mean, not putting down the player at any regards, but it's Kuzmenko's not a terrible player. He's having a little bit of an off year under Rick Tocchet. Couple of prospects, and then that first-round pick really stands out to me to not only get a decent player, but to get a first-round pick out of it too. in a situation where I think Vancouver probably could have filtered this a little bit, because knowing Lindholm maybe wasn't going to sign. So I think Vancouver might have been able to fight back and say, well, if you don't want it right now, then we don't need it. But I mean, they're getting a good two-way centerman. It's going to add a little bit of depth to them, right? So that's a nice play for Vancouver. Calgary gets kind of what they wanted. I think a first-round pick this year is very big, especially with it being Vancouver's. Kuzmenko is going to join. Not very much known about the two prospects, but I mean, must be decent players to be coming over in a deal like that. So Flames are somebody who lack, I think, high-end talent in the prospect pool. So hopefully those guys can help them out. And I think Vancouver's showing that they're gonna go for the West this year.
Awesome. And Evan, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, interesting. Man, I've been busy today because I didn't actually catch that at all. I think everyone's needs to recognize here that it's been a tough year for Kuzmenko, and part of that I think had to do with the coaching change when it came in. He was already, when you have momentum, but what I think people are forgetting is he was rivaling Pawel Bure's numbers as a rookie. Again, this has nothing to do with age or anything along that line, but everyone was raving and ranting and everything about this. He is not all of a sudden a different player. We're not talking about a player dropping off the center of the earth here. He's still sitting here this year at 21 points in 43 games, and he's not even been close to the player he was last year. So they have a losing asset that they were already losing in Lindholm, and to get what's being rumored, I mean, I 100% agree with Keegan, man. Calgary's doing really well here, but I'm going to be honest, there was nothing given up by Vancouver to make a run now.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. I mean, it's interesting, right? I just think that Calgary was in that middle area, and they just know that the way that you look at a team like Edmonton that just took off, and then LA being the team that if they can get back to the team they were, you're now already only chasing a second wild card spot. And with the way the Central Division's going, those teams are all competitive too now. So I think they're starting to just show a little bit, and Craig Conroy's going to start pulling some triggers.
My only thing with this is that given this haul, I heavily predict that there is a sign and trade, that there's some kind of deal in place, somewhat long term. I don't know if it's because with him. Well, because you give up so much for Lindholm.
I agree. But
that there may be something surrounding Pettersson, whether or not he sticks around, because he's also up. So
yeah, that's the big question.
That's kind of what I think. So thank you. Wow. I guess we'll finish off with the last questions because we don't want to take up too much of your time.
That's all good.
I wanted to know a little bit about your reporting, because it seems here that you are ready, looking clean and fresh, ready to get on, and you're ready to present. And I see that's a pretty solid sized jumbotron behind you. But talk a little bit about what it's like to be on camera and kind of interview. I know you talked a little bit about it earlier, but interview people and kind of talk the game before, during, and after.
Well, I promise you, it looks bad. I'm wearing a toque now too. The times I'm wearing a toque in Okotoks is where that picture is it's very rare. I think that was probably a day it was cold outside, and I drive from Medicine to Okotoks to call those games. So it's about 3 hours.
Wow.
Tough to get the hair done and then sit for 3 hours and then get to the rink and keep it steady all game too. So I did that coaching too. I always, on the road, I had to wear a toque because it was just the hair. It's so thin. It's hard to do it all the time. I mean, if it a little bit higher, I probably would have done it more, but it's fun to answer your question. I love being on the camera and talking with players, and I mean, just dissecting the game and getting their perspective, and obviously have seen the game in every aspect now. And I understand talking to coaches, what not to ask, what to ask, and players, hey, they're nervous, they're young kids, let's get them warmed up with me, and don't worry this, because most of these ones you got on the screen here are not live. So making sure they're comfortable and just getting some good answers from them, let them tell their story about the game.
That's awesome. Thank you. Evan, final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say. So we like to call ourselves the two guys good luck charm. So we have several people. So guys, for example, Howie Draper came on. Now he's with the New York PWHL. We got Alex Thomas working for Boston North Eastern with the women and the Boston Junior Bruins. He's now with the Hartford Wolfpack. Leah Hextall got a larger gig after coming on. You name it, it just continues to build for you guys. So all the best. I could go through a whole bunch more, but dude, I think we are your good luck charms. So make sure you remember us. And I just like to say this, when the NHL team says to you, listen, you can't go with these guys. You have to go with NHL approved. Then you let us just blank your face out and you can give us the information and interview and we'll pretend we'll give you a fake name.
That's fine with me. I hope so. I hope the good luck's there. I mean, and if the NHL ever gave me that detail, I'd be fighting back right away saying, no, these guys were my luck charm. I got to get on there. And Pawel, to answer your question, I didn't want to answer it earlier because I see that Penguins jersey in the background, but it's these guys right here that got my heart. So,
I'm a Philly fan. Don't you worry.
There we go. Okay, we're good. And you're a little bit of a traitor there behind you.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. I'm a fan. I have a Claude Giroux. I grew up in the '90s on the Flyers, so I'm a big fan. And as Jamie Basco, who's a beat writer there for them, will tell you, we interview him quite a few times. We get into it quite often because there's a whole slew of things happening beyond what it is. But I have liked what, and maybe you can comment quickly before we finish up here. What your thoughts on Danny Briere's thus far as a GM? Because I know I liked him as a player, but just as a GM and what he's done for that organization, forgetting everything else that's been going on behind the scenes.
Might be a little biased. He's my favorite player ever. So
okay.
When the news was coming out that a week before, I actually had the X post saved. I said, you need to have a player as a GM. They know the game. They know the insides and outs of it. Hire Danny Briere right now. Like, this is the guy you need to do. A week later, they did it. Made me so happy. Just a well-rounded hockey mind. What he's done already to move pieces. They've already got all those good players there. And then as soon as, the Cutter Gauthier situation goes down, he immediately finds a way to not only be that respected, to keep it quiet for so long, but to get a deal done, to get a good player in return. I think he's just done well. And they're a little bit ahead of schedule right now. I think they might have peaked this year already. But, I mean, I'm happy with the rebuild moving a little bit faster, but I know it's still in the process. And it's enjoyable to watch Philly hockey again right now.
Go ahead, Evan.
No, I was just going to say, so March 6th, I was just trying to remember. So we got James Lacavoni, a podcaster and writer for the Philadelphia Flyers. So he's going to be on. So if you want to check things out, you can see what he's got to say, man. Yeah, so great guy. And interesting enough, so Dan Silver went over there actually recently and over to Russia. So he was doing his insights and trying to see if he can connect up with Mishkov. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch over the next year, 2 years.
Please come soon.
I think the biggest thing with the team is that having Sanheim and Konechny healthy has been a big boost to that team. Everything with Ellis, who I loved as a defenseman, and I thought he was a good haul for them. But he had a hard time transitioning. I think 4 or 5 games only. That's hard, career-ending injury. But Konechny and Sanheim being able to play their potential and being healthy, Atkinson being that veteran leadership, especially given his history towards and young players like Owen Tippett has really found his game. I think the Morgan Frost situation is definitely one to kind of watch, see what happens there, because won't he play? I know he's gotten into some games. And even, in the back end of the goalie net, Samuel Ersson, and they did pick up, who was it, the goalie from LA, Cal Pedersen, right? As a backup, and, thinking one step ahead, knowing that something could happen, and having that third backup goalie always good. So it's always been interesting. So that's pretty much it. Evan, do you have any final thoughts or questions?
No, I'm just going to say, just as I grew up on Pelle Lindbergh, man, he was the reason I got into goaltending before he died tragically. I will just say, if you're a Flyers fan, remember Oliver Bonk. Oliver Bonk. Whoa, it's amazing. Thank you so much, Gigan, man. It's been great having you on. Appreciate coming on. So we've put it up there on the listings. We'll have you up as one of our former guests and throw all your links and stuff up there onto our site. You guys can go check it out. So Keegan, just coming out of your own mouth, tell us how people can follow you.
If you just I'm pretty much on the X app, Bardo Media. That's where I do all my sports stuff, all my takes, anything like that around what I'm doing in broadcasting. And that's pretty much where you'll find me on the professional side of things for the most part.
Excellent.
And what should people be paying attention to given where you're at in your career?
Hopefully the next step. That would be ideal. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out here. I got a busy schedule with our prep teams down here for the rest of February, but before they go into playoffs. Couple more Western Hockey League games on the docket, and hopefully, depending on who Medicine Hat plays in the playoffs, could be on some calls there in the postseason. But hopefully everything goes the way I would like it to, and we'll see how everything comes during the summertime.
Excellent. Thank you so much, man. It's been great having you on.
Make sure to keep that switch on every game.
Hey, always. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
Cheers. Thank you so much, guys. That is our podcast brought to you guys by the Kalkaska Battlers, the Michigan Independence Hockey League. It's getting close to a wrap-up season for them. Make sure that you go over onto YouTube channel. We still got to get Andrew Dibble, the owner of the team, on. We want to thank them just for their partnership this year. So if you're checking out semi-pro hockey, these guys are making a go of it. First year, their inaugural season, but it's the fourth season of the MIHL in Northern Michigan.
Excellent. So, Evan, that was a wonderful talk. Thank you, Keegan, again. Quite insightful. Again, there's a whole array of things that are going on behind the scenes. And as you could tell, he had his pulse on what's been going on with the BCHL and AJHL. And it's definitely interesting because sometimes you don't think about the inner workings of what goes on at these minor or lower levels of hockey. But as you could tell, there's a lot, and it's busy, and there's a lot of back and forth. So thank you again, Keegan.
Awesome, man. Thanks, man. That was good.
I know there's a lot to get through. We've talked about the big trade. Where do you want to go next?
Actually, my computer's getting close to dying on me. I didn't have a chance to charge it. I just had a couple of key pieces. So why don't we hit the Revs top 15 so I can hit number 14 today?
You got it.
Hey guys, as promised last week, I didn't cover on number 14 on my Revs top 15. So number 14 this week that I have put into place. A while back, he starting the season, if I was giving you the number, he wouldn't have been sitting there. He would have been sitting probably back at 17, maybe as low as 19, but is Liam Greentree. So Liam Greentree, I have at 14. He is not a WHL guy. Jordan. He is an OHL guy. He's an OHL guy, but he is with the Windsor Spitfires. He stands at 6'2". He is 210 pounds. This guy has produced at about 39 points in 26 games. He is coming across like he's really looking well, and he's a right winger. A lot of good, solid right wingers and big guys are not always out there, but the thing that is kind of looking and why he pushes back a little bit, he has flashes, but then sometimes will have a little bit of inconsistency. Otherwise, he could even move up another 3-4 on those charts. So he'll score in some patches and then he'll drop off a little bit. But he definitely, when he's given it, and I wanted you guys to liken to a player like Raphael Lavoie for Oilers fans. If you're kind of looking at the type of player, at one point they were saying that, good player, but kind of maybe inconsistent. That can be worked on, and they work on those things in the AHL. They work them on the ECHL and different leagues. And so just know that this year he's going to have his chance to be able to make a splash, but he skates really well for a 6'2" guy. So at number 14, guys, I have Liam Greentree, and that's it for my Revs top 15.
Excellent. You guys heard it here first. All right, Evan, we're in the final minutes. We're not going to take up too much time. It's been quite a quiet week, minus what we kind of chatted about. We've got some guests coming up in the next little bit here in the upcoming weeks. It's been a busy little time. We are getting through January, which has been a very long and crazy for all of us. But remember that every Wednesday we are here at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We have a website. Go check it out at Two Guys in Hockey Talk. We got weekly blogs going up there, different writers coming in, writing, both myself and Evan, amongst others. You can follow Evan at REVNEV on Twitter /X or me at hockey_2. We've got a lot of great information on there. Make sure you go give it a look. Evan, that's pretty much it for what I got. I mean, there's not much.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward a bit to the All-Star game. It's supposed to be changed up a little bit.
Okay, a couple things. Let's talk about a little bit on the All-Star game. Before I do that, guys, I just want to let you know, join us next week. Next week, we're really excited to have on a former NHL player for the Capitals, the Panthers, the Lightning, and the Flames. His name is Dwayne Hay. So he will be joining us next week. He was originally drafted by the Capitals in the 1995 NHL entry draft. He was traded. Get this. I'm sure this is his fame. He was traded for Esa Tikkanen in what turned out to be their run to the finals for them, not for him. So he played in 79 NHL games. So good for him, man. It's one of the hardest league in the world to play for. But now, of course, he's played in all forms, AHL, all that stuff. So, hey, Dwayne, thanks, man. I know you were on last week checking things out and stuff. Appreciate you coming on and joining us. But so if you go to our Facebook and you follow different places on our X and stuff, especially on our Facebook page, I posted some. So if you're in Ontario, he has hockey camps. So he does development. We're going to talk a lot about development and coaching next week with someone who understands this game at a totally different level than some of you common armchair fans. Some of you are armchair GMs, but some of you common armchair coaches where you think that you can just pull this person, do this, do that. What do you do with a guy who's too young? What do you do with an older player? These are questions that we want you to send our way. So send them on X during the week. Come on next week, 7 o'clock, be on Mountain Standard Time. Dwayne's coming on, and Dwayne Hay will be able to answer all those questions outside of, hopefully he has a story or two, and maybe we'll talk about that. I wonder if he actually got to talk to Esa Tikkanen after being traded for him at some point in time. I'm not sure around it. So, but yeah, he's played in several. He's even played for the old Bentley Generals, man, in the Chinook Hockey League in Alberta too. So he's got a lot of stuff going on. Okay, let's hit in on right now. So I had to put a plug in there for you, Dwayne. So let's hit in on the All-Star game. Now, correct me. Did you not say that the NHL All-Star game, don't get all worked up about it? It's not a big deal. It's for kids. Did you not say that?
I did.
Okay. Now, if my memory serves me right, a lot of you are upset on all the social media platforms, all the hockey boards, and you're complaining about the jerseys during the NHL All-Star game. Like they're the most hideous ever. They look like a cereal box. Now, I want to go back to my question earlier. Did you not say that it's all about the kids' game? Why the heck are they worried about?
What's the correlation?
It's a cereal box, man. So you're worried that a jersey looks like a cereal box. Kids eat cereal. It's a kid's game. It's for kids. Who the heck cares about nice-looking uniforms? You play 3-on-3. You don't play. This should have been a rant.
Well,
but I laugh. This is not a big deal. Who cares what the jerseys look like? It's already a joke what goes on. They already kind of, hey, look at me. I'm wearing a dress now. And look at me. I'm wearing a baseball hat. And I'm going to score a goal. Pretend I'm on a breakaway. Give them the jersey that goes with it. You're acting like a bunch of clowns. You might as well dress like a bunch of clowns. That's my thought on the All-Star game.
So my understanding is that this was a company that Justin Bieber owns. That he designed it because it is in Toronto and the kid is from that area.
Geez.
So, of course.
That's funny.
That's one of the reasons why. And if you look at the photos of like the promo photos, they don't look that bad. I'm sure people will disagree. I think they're not the best, but when you look at them like on ice, they don't look the best. And the thing, Evan, I will say is that even if it is for kids, let's do something unique. Why is it that I've seen such cool unique jerseys for other things, like the third alternate jersey that they create every year? There's some really cool unique ones. I've got the Minnesota Wild one that's like white yellow. You know, there's some really cool ones that you can design, and yet they always seem to go. And this is also maybe a rant for another night for the Stadium Series jerseys. They're so bland. Like, I understand.
I loved them. They were awesome.
I think they need to just do something unique and cool. You're not going to make everybody happy. I get it. But sometimes they hit it out of the park and they look solid, and sometimes they don't. And I get it.
Yeah.
Looking on the body versus on the ice is completely different. But
That's fair.
I'm not a fan. For example, I really liked in the outdoor game this year, the Seattle jerseys. I did not like the Vegas jerseys with the V. Wasn't a fan.
Oh,
And
I loved them.
If I'm a connoisseur of purchasing jerseys, which I am, I want to purchase ones that are good and quality and that look cool. I don't want to buy one that looks kind of meh. And that's the whole point. If you want to earn money, Evan, and the NHL does, that's their bottom line.
Yeah.
No pun intended, is that they should create content that looks great. But again, it is what it is. You know, people may get worked a little bit too much about it. It is partially for kids, but there are also adults and parents there. And they're the ones paying the big bucks to attend.
That's true.
So
That's
clearly
true.
they need to make a little bit of an effort, right? That being said, we'll see how it goes. The event hopefully is a little bit better than it was last year, which wasn't a big success. And then I'm looking forward to the NHL resuming, because we're going to get closer and closer to the playoff and the trade deadline. And there's going to be a lot happening, because right now, Evan, I don't know who's doing what, and I don't know who's potentially able to make it to the Cup final. That's how wild and open it is this year. Just my thoughts.
It is making it exciting, though, isn't it?
It is. And my only other comment as an aside is I just wish Patrick Laine the best. I know he's got into the Players Assistance Program. He's dealing with some stuff. We hope to see him back on the ice again. I know Columbus, we love to talk to you guys in Columbus. What's going on? Fantilli's now out for 8 weeks. The team has struggled. And I hear rumblings, and you guys can quote me if it's going to happen, is that Jarmo Kukalainen's job could be on the line. I don't know if it'll happen soon, but it could be closer than you think. It's just what I'm going to say.
So I would say that from just pure speculation, that they need to get as low as they can in the standings in the draft one last year if you've already blown your year. And so he doesn't get released.
Competitive, Evan. This is not acceptable.
Yeah, you don't need to change the GM. You're not going to change the team and get them more competitive. That's why they didn't change out Ken Holland in Edmonton.
They're trying to trade Komarov after just acquiring him. They've been shopping him around.
Yeah, well, that's because you're dealing with the GM issue. I'm sure that the president's going to come in and he's going to actually deal with that. Or is Kukalainen, is he also the president? I haven't double checked.
No,
recently.
I think it's somebody else, but I think Jarmo Kukalainen is just the GM. So
yeah. So well, and maybe they're going to freeze his hands here at some point if they're going to do it. But I could see them holding off. You don't want to waste that opportunity, right? And so here's the thing: if you want a boost, you look at a coach. So I'd like to switch that over.
They just had a coaching change.
They didn't just have it; they had it at the beginning of the year. How many people go through? Yeah, and it wasn't really a coaching change. It was a default. Unfortunately, he got put in he was not even prepared. He didn't prepare the team himself. It was an unfair situation, and the team has been dealing with the repercussions of it all season and dealing with injury. Dealing with
coaches go through that locker room. I think it's now on the GM. I'm just saying.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying they don't change a GM. Every pundit will tell you that's in the know. You do not change a GM to get a team better in the middle of the season. That doesn't help you. So
you do it because you're trying to set up for next year, and you don't want the current guy and the current regime making changes, especially at the trade deadline, if you know that you could potentially get worse, or you're trading away a piece that maybe you don't want to trade away.
So maybe I get 4 more wins out of making a change. Okay, I'm going for it. And instead, I get Carter Yakmanchuk instead of Demidov. Are you serious? There's no way as an ownership I'm going to let it figure its way out. I'm going to just let him take the loss.
I'm talking about the prospects that are in the organization right now. Do you want that GM trading somebody? You saw what Peter Chiarelli did with Koskinen, and it hamstrung the Oilers.
No, you can go in and you can lock their hands. You can lock their hands. Yeah. What do you mean? No, you can't. Absolutely. Like you are.
They didn't do it to Chiarelli. It does. You're
listen, not
idea.
Everybody is the Edmonton Oilers. And I don't think you know a single thing about hockey if you think that the GMs cannot be handcuffed. Like, come on. Think about it. Why
Some
did
can,
things...
some can't. Some can and some can't. It depends
Yeah,
on the
but
organization.
okay, but you just said that they don't. So I don't know. I think you're having a hard time
I'm
making up your
saying
mind.
that they're not always handcuffed, and sometimes they do what they believe is best. And I'm saying,
So, hey,
if you're management and ownership, and you look at this Columbus team and you say, "Hey, do we really want to be trading maybe a Provorov, maybe one of our younger guys, maybe a Kent Johnson who's been out there? Do we want to trade this now, or do we get rid of the GM and let him continue to maybe sink the team just because we can get a potentially top 10 draft pick again, which you'll still get no matter what, because it's not about the wins. It's about what are you doing in the offseason to be competitive next year. I look at Ottawa as the same way. They're doing the exact same thing in Ottawa. They're looking for a veteran with experience. You have new ownership. You have a new coach, Jacques Martin, and he's called it out. They've struggled. They're not doing so well, and they want to be competitive next year. What are you doing to change that? And that's what I say. And they fired. Who did they fire, Evan, in the season? Who did they fire? Who was the GM there at the beginning of the year? Pierre Dorian.
Yeah.
Think about Ottawa. Why did they fire Pierre Dorian?
You think this is the same thing as that you're talking about in Columbus? No, you're talking every year. You fired your GM at the beginning of the year. You don't know what you're talking about, but that's okay. Okay, so I just want to throw this out there. My last thought, guys, of the night, while we do a wrap here, is start watching closely for Jay Woodcroft to land a job in the East. Okay. I'll go with that tonight.
Okay.
All right,
wait for us, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in again to listening to our rant back and forth. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter/X, as my partner likes to say. He can be followed at Rev and Ev, and I can be followed at Hockey_2. We are on YouTube. Give us a follow, like, share, subscribe. We appreciate it. Shout out to the Sports Empire for all their hard work and everything they do. All sports related, NBA, MLB, Super Bowl coming out. Should be exciting this weekend. And any final thoughts, Evan?
No, man. I just, as we go out, guys, you're going to hear a song also by another one of our partners. We haven't got a chance to mention them tonight. Penny Billionaires, electronic hard rock fused band. So their song Invincible that we've been given the rights to. In exchange for that, we ask that you go check out the rest of their music. They got some fabulous and great stuff. So next week, join us 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time live, as we have former NHLer, ECHLer, AHLer coach, development coach. The guy has done tons of stuff between playing and coaching and development, and we are going to rack his brain and pick it apart. He's gonna be dead tired by the time we're done our half-hour segment with him. So Dwayne Hay joining us next week. Again, Dwayne, thanks for coming on, and we will catch you next week. So, as we say every week, in the famous words of the loved Ed Whalen, it's been another ring-a-ding-dong dandy, but in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe. Thank you. And thank you, Keegan, for coming on. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, Keegan.
Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill. Every time